The curtain closed on Radar O'Reilly's iconic character, leaving MASH series fans stunned and filled with questions. His sudden departure was more than a simple cast change. It marked a pivotal moment in the show's history. Gary Burghoff had embodied the heart and innocence of the 4077th, portraying Radar with such authenticity that audiences believed he was the character. When he left, it felt personal. Was it the demanding filming schedule that finally took its toll? Were there unresolved tensions behind the scenes? Did creative differences with the show's producers drive him away? Or was there a deeper, more private struggle that led him to step back from the spotlight at the peak of his fame? This documentary delves into the personal and professional pressures that culminated in one of television's most emotional exits. To truly grasp why Gary Burghoff made that choice, we must first explore his journey, long before Radar, long before the fame, tracing the small-town roots, early challenges, and creative passions that shaped him into an unforgettable television icon. Born on May 24, 1943, in Bristol, Connecticut, Gary Burghoff grew up in a modest, working-class family that emphasized discipline, humility, and self-expression. His mother, Anne, was a former professional dancer and theater director, which instilled in her a deep love for the arts and performance. This passion influenced Gary from a young age, as he was surrounded by creativity and artistic expression. His father, Rodney, was a stern yet dependable manufacturing worker who taught Gary the value of hard work and responsibility. As the youngest of three children, Gary often sought ways to stand out, developing a quiet yet profound introspection and artistic inclination. Despite facing challenges, particularly with dyslexia that made traditional schooling difficult, his family provided essential support. His mother encouraged his artistic pursuits, introducing him to painting and nurturing his natural rhythm on the drums. While other children played sports, Gary found solace in creating vivid paintings and exploring complex jazz rhythms, transforming his internal struggles into artistic expression. The love and encouragement from his family helped him see his differences as unique gifts, fostering his confidence and creativity. When the Burghoff family later relocated to Delavan, Wisconsin, Gary's creative world truly began to blossom. The small town, though humble, provided a supportive community for a young boy with artistic leanings. At Delavan Darien High School, Gary became known not just as a quiet student, but as someone with extraordinary artistic talent and emotional intelligence. He won awards for his paintings, which displayed a rare sensitivity to light and mood for someone his age. But it wasn't just the visual arts that captured his attention. Music, particularly drumming, became a daily obsession. He played with local jazz groups, performed in local nightclubs, and earned a reputation for being able to carry a complex rhythm without missing a beat. His expressive drumming allowed him to channel his energy and anxiety into something productive and powerful. Encouraged by his teachers and mother, Gary went on to study drama and fine arts at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. While there, he explored stage performance more seriously, immersing himself in plays and student films. But the structured environment of academia soon felt constricting. Gary was a doer, a performer, someone who needed real-world experience to grow. Eventually, he made the brave decision to drop out of college, determined to pursue acting full-time. He moved to New York, where he supported himself through odd jobs, waiting tables, doing clerical work, and even working as a jewelry designer, while continuing to perform as a jazz drummer in small clubs. These years were filled with rejection and uncertainty, but they also hardened his resolve. Every minor acting role, every late-night gig, was another step closer to the big break he knew he had in him. Gary's journey in entertainment began not with the bright lights of Hollywood, but through the dedication and hard work of stage performance. His significant breakthrough came when he was cast in the off-Broadway production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, where he played the lead role of Charlie Brown. His performance was marked by a gentle awkwardness and emotional depth that would later define his career. Critics responded positively, praising his earnest and understated portrayal, which opened new doors for him in the entertainment industry. With this newfound momentum, Gary began auditioning for television and film roles, slowly gaining recognition. During this time, director Robert Altman was searching for actors for his war film, MASH. Altman sought performers who could bring a fresh and grounded energy to their roles, and Gary's audition stood out among many. He was cast as Radar O'Reilly, the young company clerk known for his sixth sense and kind heart. Although part of a large ensemble cast, Gary's performance resonated with both the director and audiences, bringing humor and emotional authenticity to the character. His portrayal was so impactful that when the film transitioned to a television series 2 years later, he was the only actor retained to reprise his role. This decision highlighted how vital his presence was to the essence of MASH, marking the start of a new chapter in his career that would lead to nationwide fame. In 1972, MASH premiered on CBS and quickly became one of the most critically acclaimed shows in American television history. At its heart was Radar O'Reilly, the boyish, wide-eyed clerk who seemed to be both everywhere and nowhere, anticipating orders before they were spoken, comforting the wounded, and quietly keeping the unit functioning through chaos. Gary Burghoff made Radar unforgettable. He brought something to the role that wasn't in the script: vulnerability, empathy, and an underlying melancholy that gave the character remarkable depth. As the series evolved, so did Radar. He wasn't just comic relief. He was the embodiment of innocence in a world scarred by war. Gary's own personality infused Radar with a realism that resonated deeply with viewers. He made Radar feel human, not like a caricature. His performance earned him widespread acclaim, and he was eventually awarded a Primetime Emmy in 1977. Beyond the accolades, Gary's input helped shape the trajectory of the character. He worked closely with the writers, offering suggestions, and often pushing for moments of quiet emotional truth that would allow Radar to grow beyond the cute kid label. Over the course of 8 seasons, Radar became the emotional compass of the show, a symbol of decency in the face of chaos, and Gary's work played a huge role in that transformation. While portraying Radar O'Reilly on MASH, Gary Burghoff faced significant challenges that took a toll on his well-being. The demands of filming were intense, often requiring long hours that stretched from 12 to 14 hours a day. These hours were spent under harsh studio lights or in remote outdoor locations, which added to the physical strain. Maintaining Radar's innocence and emotional honesty week after week became increasingly draining for Gary. The show's themes, which dealt with heavy subjects like death, moral conflict, loneliness, and fear, often resonated with his own feelings, making it hard for him to detach from the character he had developed so carefully. In addition to the emotional challenges, Gary dealt with a physical issue that he worked hard to conceal. He was born with a minor deformity in his left hand, which required him to use clever camera angles and blocking to hide it from the audience. This added layer of self-consciousness contributed to his overall fatigue and stress. As Radar's popularity soared, Gary found himself uncomfortable with the fame that came with it. He was not someone who enjoyed being in the spotlight, and the increasing attention often made him retreat further into himself. Rumors began to circulate about creative disagreements, suggesting that Gary felt the show was losing its heart and that his input was being overlooked. These tensions, combined with a heavy workload and a desire to spend more time with his family, weighed heavily on him. Despite his deep affection for Radar and the show, the pressures of the role began to unravel him, leaving him tired, emotionally worn out, and yearning for a quieter, more authentic life away from the demands of the set. Emotionally, Gary Burghoff found himself walking a delicate tightrope throughout his tenure on MASH, one that required him to balance the pure-hearted innocence of Radar O'Reilly with the series' often devastating themes of war, death, and human suffering. While Radar was meant to be the show's moral compass, an emotional anchor, portraying him demanded that Gary constantly tap into his most vulnerable self. Over time, this persistent emotional excavation began to wear on him. He wasn't simply playing a role, he was living it. The trauma depicted in the storylines wasn't abstract for Gary, it seeped into his psyche, leaving him emotionally exhausted after long days of filming. Episodes that featured wounded soldiers, dying children, and the psychological toll of war on medical personnel weren't just fictional narratives. They were emotionally grueling exercises for an actor already prone to sensitivity and introspection. In interviews over the years, Gary would later admit that the realism of the show often stayed with him after filming wrapped. He'd carry the emotional weight home, unable to detach from Radar's experiences. It was this depth of emotional investment, his constant need to be emotionally on, that eventually contributed to a growing sense of mental fatigue and an ever-present undercurrent of anxiety that shadowed even his proudest moments on set. Despite forging close bonds with much of the MASH cast and crew, and genuinely valuing the collaborative spirit of the production, Gary Burghoff increasingly found himself feeling trapped, confined to the narrow identity of Radar O'Reilly. The role had brought him fame and accolades, including an Emmy Award, but it had also become a double-edged sword. Industry executives and casting directors struggled to see him as anyone but the shy, lovable clerk from the 477th. Offers for other roles were few and far between, and the few auditions he did land often came with an expectation that he would simply recreate Radar in a different costume. Gary, who had once aspired to be a serious dramatic actor, felt creatively stifled. He had dreams of writing, directing, and even composing. He was, after all, a skilled musician and painter. But every attempt to branch out was met with resistance or indifference. Producers, while grateful for his performance, hesitated to support his behind-the-scenes ambitions, worried that allowing him to deviate from his Radar brand might disrupt the delicate balance that had made MASH such a success. This lack of support slowly soured his experience on the show. As the years passed, the joy he once felt in embodying Radar was replaced with a growing sense of frustration and restlessness. Gary wanted to evolve, but the industry wasn't ready to let go of the image it had come to rely on. Behind the scenes of the tightly run MASH set, not everything was as harmonious as it appeared on screen. One of the most talked about tensions involved Gary Burghoff and his co-star Alan Alda, who played the beloved but sharp-tongued Hawkeye Pierce. While both actors were professionals committed to their craft, their creative philosophies couldn't have been more different. Gary was instinctive, emotional, and often worked best when he could let his natural charisma and spontaneity take the lead. Alan Alda, on the other hand, approached acting with a more cerebral intensity, analytical, deliberate, and deeply structured. This contrast in methods often led to disagreements, particularly in scenes that required emotional nuance or tightly timed exchanges. Their interactions reportedly became strained, with occasional friction over screen time, dialogue delivery, and directorial decisions. Gary, who was already feeling undervalued and emotionally fatigued, sometimes perceived Alda's influence on the show's direction as overreaching, while Alda, who took on increasing creative control as a writer and director, may have found Gary's emotional approach unpredictable. Their relationship became professional but tense, and according to several cast and crew members, those tensions occasionally spilled into the filming itself. Subtle changes in the way Radar and Hawkeye interacted on screen sometimes mirrored their off-camera dynamic. Scenes that once felt full of warmth began to take on an undercurrent of detachment or awkwardness. While the two men never engaged in open conflict, the quiet divide between them became an unspoken truth on the MASH set. As Gary's emotional and creative frustrations mounted, they began to show in his behavior on set. Some cast and crew members quietly described him as difficult or demanding. While he was never overtly combative, his insistence on deeper emotional authenticity and more screen time for his character Radar created friction with the production team and fellow actors. He often pushed for rewrites or retakes if he felt a scene did not meet its emotional potential. His commitment to method acting, which involves staying in character even between takes, sometimes created distance between him and his colleagues. What some viewed as dedication, others began to interpret as moodiness or volatility. His perfectionism and vulnerability, once seen as endearing, now felt burdensome to those around him. There were days when his energy fluctuated drastically, charming and upbeat in the morning but withdrawn and anxious by afternoon. His increasingly strained relationships, combined with the physical exhaustion of long shoots and emotional storytelling, made for an isolating experience. The same cast members he had once laughed and bonded with began to keep their distance. As the ensemble gelled around the evolving tone of the series, Gary sometimes felt like he was standing apart, still Radar, but no longer truly part of the team. The emotional weight of these interpersonal tensions added yet another layer to his growing desire to leave the show and reclaim a sense of identity and peace. One of the most remarkable aspects of Gary Burghoff's time on MASH was his quiet and unwavering resilience in the face of a lifelong physical challenge. Born with Poland syndrome, a rare congenital condition, Gary's left hand was underdeveloped, with fingers that were small and partially fused. Rather than allowing this to define him, he worked tirelessly to ensure that it never overshadowed his performance. With great ingenuity, he learned to use props, camera angles, and body positioning to hide his left hand from the audience. He held clipboards, cradled files, or stood with his arm tucked just out of frame, always one step ahead of the lens. What's truly extraordinary is that, despite this constant awareness of his physical limitation, Gary never let it diminish Radar's vitality or relatability. He continued to play the drums professionally, a feat that required incredible physical adaptation, and he painted with skill and grace. His refusal to allow his disability to limit his creative life is a testament to his determination, not only as an actor but as a human being. He wanted Radar to be seen as a full person, not defined by weakness or difference, and he succeeded. Millions of viewers saw Radar as pure, capable, and kind, and that was entirely due to Gary's efforts. The disability may have been invisible to fans, but the strength it took to perform under those conditions is one of the most powerful, unsung aspects of his legacy. Acting with a concealed physical condition presented an ongoing and unique challenge for Gary Burghoff throughout his career, especially on a show as demanding and visually intimate as MASH. Born with Poland syndrome, a rare congenital disorder that resulted in an underdeveloped left hand with only 3 smaller fingers, Gary faced a daily battle that most fans never even noticed. Determined not to let his condition define him or his work, he meticulously planned every gesture, every blocking position, and every scene with intense precision. He would cradle clipboards, hold radios, or tuck his hand behind props in a way that allowed Radar's physicality to seem completely natural. The difficulty wasn't just logistical, it was emotional. The effort to conceal his hand required constant vigilance, even during moments of intense performance. While delivering emotionally charged scenes, whether Radar was sending a telegram home, dealing with the loss of a friend, or facing the horrors of war, Gary had to remain acutely aware of his posture and camera angles, ensuring the illusion remained intact. It's a testament to his profound dedication to his craft that viewers saw none of this. What they saw instead was a fully realized character who was confident, capable, and kind, a man whose presence brought comfort during times of chaos. Gary's ability to deliver such performances while managing a deeply personal challenge is one of the most quietly heroic aspects of his career. His physical resilience was invisible, but it underpinned every single episode he appeared in. Gary Burghoff's decision to leave MASH was not made lightly. It was the culmination of years of internal conflict and external pressure, an emotional crossroads that forced him to choose between professional stability and personal well-being. By the late 1970s, the constant demands of filming had begun to take a serious toll on his life outside the studio. The long hours, intense emotional demands of the role, and ongoing creative frustrations had begun to erode the foundations of his marriage to Janet Guile. Gary found himself increasingly absent from home, missing birthdays, anniversaries, and everyday moments that formed the heartbeat of family life. He later expressed deep regret about not being present enough during his children's early years, and the emotional toll of that guilt became too heavy to bear. Behind the scenes, his exhaustion was palpable. He was emotionally spent, physically depleted, and spiritually disconnected from the joy that had once come with portraying Radar. The character, who had started as a delightful extension of Gary's own personality, had grown into something that felt more like a burden than a blessing. He feared that if he continued, he would lose not only his marriage but also himself. Ultimately, Gary made the painful but courageous decision to step away, not only from one of the most popular roles on television, but from the fame, the money, and the recognition it brought. It was a decision grounded in a deep yearning to return to what mattered most: his identity, his family, and a life that felt genuine again. Following his divorce in 1979, and the emotionally charged departure from MASH, Gary Burghoff entered a period of deep personal reflection. For nearly a decade, he had lived under the shadow of Radar O'Reilly, and while the role had brought him national acclaim, it had also consumed much of who he was as a person. The lines between character and self had blurred to the point that Gary found it difficult to define his identity outside of the uniform, the teddy bear, and the trademark innocence of Radar. Fans still called him by the character's name in public. Casting directors saw him as only Radar. Despite his versatility and talents in music, painting, and writing, Gary began to feel like he had been typecast, not only by Hollywood but by life itself. The emotional fallout from that realization was profound. He no longer wanted to be defined by a character he had once loved, but now felt constrained by. He longed to explore darker, more mature roles, ones that challenged him and allowed him to grow as an actor. He also wanted to create, to write his own stories, and bring his own voice to life behind the camera. However, re-entering the industry on his own terms proved difficult. He had become a symbol of innocence and warmth at a time when Hollywood was shifting toward grittier, more cynical narratives. As offers dwindled and opportunities remained elusive, Gary found himself in a kind of professional purgatory, desperate to move forward, yet forever tethered to the past. Still, he pressed on, determined to find a new purpose and reclaim the parts of himself he had left behind in the operating tents of the 4077. The farewell episode, titled Goodbye Radar, which aired as a two-part arc in 1979, marked one of the most emotionally resonant send-offs in television history. Unlike other character departures that were written in haste or wrapped in comedy, Gary Burghoff's exit was handled with a level of sensitivity and depth that honored both the actor and the legacy of Radar O'Reilly. The episodes were carefully crafted to reflect not just the character's departure from the 4077th, but also the emotional departure Gary himself was making from the show and its cast. The storyline saw Radar being called back home to Iowa following the death of his uncle, forcing him to choose between military duty and familial obligation. As Radar wrestled with his decision, the episodes revisited his most memorable moments through subtle flashbacks and character interactions. These included poignant conversations with Hawkeye, Colonel Potter, and Klinger, each layered with subtext and genuine emotion. Radar's final speech to the unit was both tender and quietly heart-wrenching, delivered with a perfect mix of hesitation, hope, and sorrow. He spoke not only for himself, but for anyone who had ever faced the momentous decision to let go of something familiar in pursuit of something more meaningful. The final image of Radar walking away, silhouetted against the backdrop of the compound, teddy bear in hand, was a poetic bookend to a character who had come to symbolize the moral soul of MASH. It was not just a goodbye, it was a tribute to the power of empathy, integrity, and quiet strength. The Goodbye Radar episodes stand out as a significant moment in television history, showcasing an emotional depth that resonates with audiences even today. Gary Burghoff's portrayal of Radar O'Reilly is often hailed as one of the most genuine and heartfelt performances in the series. His ability to express Radar's innocence and emotional vulnerability allowed viewers to connect deeply with the character. As Radar evolved over the 8 seasons, fans felt a personal connection, as if they were bidding farewell to a close friend rather than just a fictional character. The teddy bear, a recurring symbol in Radar's story, represented his childlike nature and unwavering loyalty, becoming a lasting emblem of purity and emotional strength amidst the chaos of war. In the aftermath of his departure, Radar continued to be referenced by other characters, highlighting his lasting impact on the show's emotional landscape. His memory lingered in the camp, serving as a reminder of the innocence that was gradually lost. For many fans, Radar's farewell marked a poignant end to an era in MASH's narrative, symbolizing a shift where the harsh realities of war became more pronounced. Gary Burghoff's performance not only enhanced the episode but also solidified Radar's legacy as one of television's most cherished characters. This farewell transcended mere storytelling. It became a cultural milestone that captured the essence of what MASH and Burghoff brought to the screen. With Gary Burghoff's departure from MASH in 1979, the series experienced a significant shift that affected its overall tone and character dynamics. Burghoff's portrayal of Radar O'Reilly was essential to the show, providing a sense of innocence and sincerity that resonated deeply with viewers. His character served as a moral compass amid the chaos of war, and his absence created a noticeable void. The writers faced the challenge of adapting to this change, introducing new characters like Klinger in more prominent roles. While these additions brought fresh energy and humor, they could not replicate the unique charm and emotional depth that Radar provided. The departure marked a transition from the whimsical and emotionally grounded early seasons to a focus on more complex interpersonal relationships and the psychological impacts of war. The humor evolved, becoming more reflective and often delving into the existential weight of the characters' experiences. Although MASH continued to thrive, both creatively and commercially, many fans and cast members felt that Burghoff's absence left an irreplaceable gap. The energy on set shifted, as the camaraderie that had developed over the years required adjustment. The silence left by Radar's absence was both symbolic and literal, marking a turning point in the beloved series. Despite previous creative and interpersonal tensions, the response from the MASH cast following Gary Burghoff's departure was one of sincere respect and emotional loss. Alan Alda, whose on-screen interactions with Gary had sometimes mirrored their real-life differences, was among the first to publicly acknowledge Gary's importance to the show. In interviews, Alda praised Gary's talent, especially highlighting his ability to bring vulnerability and humor together in a way that few other actors could. Loretta Swit, who played Major Margaret Houlihan, was especially vocal about the personal and professional bonds she shared with Gary, recalling his emotional depth and the way he made everyone on set laugh, sometimes at the most unexpected moments. Other cast members, including Jamie Farr and Mike Farrell, echoed those sentiments, describing Gary as not just a coworker, but as a family member whose departure left a noticeable emotional absence. Over time, many acknowledged that, while the show had successfully adapted to cast changes in the past, Gary's exit was uniquely impactful because of the innocence and warmth Radar brought to the ensemble. The relationships built during those long shooting days weren't just professional. They were forged through years of collaboration under the emotional weight of one of television's most demanding scripts. Gary's departure was a reminder that even fictional war zones can feel like home, and that leaving them behind can be as painful as leaving real friendships behind. After stepping away from MASH, Gary Burghoff deliberately chose a path that favored peace over prestige. Although still recognized everywhere he went, he turned down high-profile roles and opportunities in order to spend more time with his family and rediscover the creative spark that had driven him long before fame. He remained active in the entertainment world, albeit on a more relaxed and selective basis. He appeared on popular game shows like Match Game and Hollywood Squares, where his wit and charm remained as engaging as ever. These appearances allowed him to connect with fans in a lighter format, far from the emotional depth of Radar. Gary also returned briefly to the world of MASH through the short-lived spin-off After MASH, reprising his role as Radar in a special two-part episode titled, It Had to Be You. Though the series itself struggled to find footing, Gary's appearance was a highlight, showing how beloved the character remained. Alongside his limited acting work, Gary began exploring other facets of his artistic identity. He delved deeper into his lifelong passions, painting, drumming, and wildlife conservation. He found fulfillment in pursuits that allowed for reflection and self-expression, crafting a post-MASH life that, while quieter, was deeply meaningful. Following his television success, Gary Burghoff became more than just an actor. He transformed into a respected wildlife artist and conservationist. With a profound respect for nature, he began creating detailed and emotionally charged portraits of animals in their natural habitats. His paintings captured the grace of eagles in flight, the tranquility of deer at rest, and the stealth of wolves moving through snow. Each piece showcased a unique blend of technical skill and emotional depth, earning him recognition within both wildlife and art communities across the nation. His artwork was not merely decorative, it expressed his deep bond with the natural world, a sanctuary where he found peace and renewal after years of intense work in the entertainment industry. Beyond painting, Gary became a licensed wildlife rehabilitator in California, dedicating himself to the care of injured animals. He worked closely with birds, raccoons, and other wildlife, nurturing them back to health and helping them return to their natural environments. This phase of his life revealed a softer, more introspective side of the man who once portrayed Radar. His commitment to animal welfare was genuine and hands-on, driven by love and a strong desire to protect wildlife. Gary utilized his public platform to advocate for endangered species, environmental conservation, and the importance of protecting natural habitats, demonstrating that his compassion and dedication extended well beyond his television career. Even as he withdrew from the public eye, Gary Burghoff never let go of his first artistic love: music. A lifelong drummer with a keen sense of rhythm and passion for jazz, he formed a trio that performed at small venues, jazz clubs, and special events. His drumming was more than a hobby, it was an emotional outlet, a space where he could lose himself in sound and movement. Performing live allowed him to reconnect with the raw joy of creation, an experience free from the constraints of scripts or camera angles. Music had always been part of his DNA. Even during his time on MASH, Gary's musical talents were occasionally woven into the show, with episodes featuring scenes of Radar playing the drums or listening to records, subtle nods to the actor's real-life skills. Post-MASH, he used those talents to bring joy not only to himself but to others, performing in benefits, church events, and even composing music in his spare time. For Gary, music wasn't about fame. It was about peace, expression, and the simple, irreplaceable thrill of creating something beautiful. Whether it was a brush on a canvas or a beat on a snare drum, Gary Burghoff continued to express himself through the arts, always following the quiet compass of his heart. Outside the spotlight of stage and screen, Gary Burghoff quietly cultivated a passion that few fans knew about inventing. Gifted not only with artistic intuition, but also with a practical, problem-solving mind, Gary turned his attention to everyday issues that sparked his curiosity. One of his most well-known inventions was a fishing tool called Chum Magic, a device designed to help recreational fishermen attract fish by distributing bait effectively underwater. It wasn't just a novelty product. It was a practical, well-thought-out tool that reflected Gary's lifelong love of the outdoors and his hands-on approach to both nature and innovation. Another notable invention was a sanitary toilet seat handle, designed for public restrooms to help users lift the seat without touching it directly. While this might seem like a simple idea, it demonstrated Gary's attention to overlooked problems and his desire to create small but meaningful improvements to daily life. He wasn't chasing wealth or recognition with these inventions. He was simply acting on a genuine impulse to make the world more comfortable and hygienic, one idea at a time. In each product, there was a glimpse of the same sincerity and care he brought to his performances, a desire to help others, to think creatively, and to leave the world just a little better than he found it. Gary's deep love for the natural world extended into a lesser-known, but equally meaningful hobby, philately, the study and collection of postage stamps. This was not just stamp collecting for nostalgia's sake. It was an extension of his conservation advocacy and a tribute to the animals and wilderness he so deeply admired. In 1993, he was invited by the U.S. Postal Service to help select a stamp design for American hunters, a role that gave him a platform to spotlight the importance of respecting and preserving wildlife habitats. From there, his interest blossomed into a carefully curated collection of wildlife-themed stamps, featuring endangered species, migratory birds, and national parks. Each stamp in his collection told a story, not only about the animal it depicted, but also about his evolving relationship with nature. He used his collection to educate others, often speaking about the importance of environmental stewardship, ethical hunting practices, and protecting ecosystems for future generations. Through philately, he found another way to merge his personal passions with public education. His stamps, like his paintings and performances, served as a bridge, connecting beauty, awareness, and purpose in a way that left a quiet but lasting impact. In 2009, Gary Burghoff offered the world an unexpected and deeply personal gift, his memoir, To Mash and Back My Life in Poems and Songs. This work stands out from traditional autobiographies as it takes a more poetic and expressive route. Instead of just recounting events in a straightforward manner, Gary interweaves reflections, memories, songs, and original poems, revealing the emotional layers of his journey. The book provides fans with a rare glimpse into the heart of a man who had long kept his private life guarded. Through his writing, he addresses the pressures of fame and his battles with insecurity. He shares the joys of fatherhood alongside the pain of personal loss, presenting his story with honesty and vulnerability. More than just a celebrity tell-all, the memoir serves as an artistic expression. His songs capture the rhythm of a soul shaped by both tenderness and trauma, while his poems echo the quiet voice behind Radar's gentle eyes. Readers gain a fuller understanding of a man who has often been misunderstood or overshadowed by his most famous role. The memoir solidifies his status not only as an actor, but also as a storyteller, unafraid to use multiple mediums to convey his truth. It became a touchstone for fans who had long admired his work, offering them the chance to understand the man behind the performance. After years away from the screen, Gary Burghoff made a heartfelt return to acting in 2010 with the faith-based independent film Daniel's Lot. The project told a story of redemption and community rebuilding in the wake of loss, resonating deeply with Gary's personal values. His role gave him a chance to reconnect with the art of storytelling without the commercial pressures of major studios or network contracts. For fans, seeing Gary on screen again, older, wiser, and more grounded, was a welcome surprise. His performance was soft-spoken, nuanced, and emotionally compelling, reminding audiences that his screen presence had not diminished with time. Daniel's Lot was not a blockbuster, but it didn't need to be. For Gary, it was about the experience, about returning to a medium he loved on terms that aligned with his life's evolution. He didn't seek a full Hollywood comeback. Rather, he treated the role as a creative reawakening, a reminder that storytelling still lived within him. It was a gentle echo of the past, combined with a new, more contemplative voice shaped by decades of living outside the spotlight. His return was quiet, but it carried weight. A statement that even after stepping back, some artists never stop creating. As of today, Gary Burghoff's estimated net worth stands at approximately $6 million, reflecting a diverse and multifaceted career that extended far beyond his early fame. The foundation of his wealth was built through his iconic role on MASH, a role that earned him both critical acclaim and significant financial rewards during its peak seasons. However, Gary's success did not end with acting. He also found financial stability through a combination of savvy career decisions and creative ventures in other fields. His wildlife paintings became collector's items, featured in galleries, and sold through limited edition prints. His appearances on popular game shows kept him in the public eye during transitional periods, and he leveraged his fame responsibly by serving as a brand spokesperson for major companies, including IBM and BP, during the 1980s and 1990s. He even supported online auction platforms, understanding the importance of connecting with new audiences through emerging technologies. Gary never pursued wealth for its own sake. He pursued fulfillment, but his careful choices, both artistic and personal, allowed him to maintain financial independence and continue supporting the causes he loved, particularly conservation, education, and the arts. As the video unfolds, it reveals the layers behind Gary Burghoff's decision to leave MASH, a choice that resonated deeply with fans. The exploration of his early life sheds light on the formative experiences that influenced his portrayal of Radar O'Reilly. Viewers learn about the pressures of fame and the toll it can take on an individual. Burghoff's candid reflections provide insight into the emotional weight he carried while balancing his personal life with the demands of a beloved role. The documentary highlights the importance of mental health and the need for self-care, especially in the entertainment industry. It also touches on the relationships he built with his co-stars and the impact of those connections on his decision. By the end, audiences gain a deeper understanding of Burghoff's journey, recognizing that his departure was not just a career move, but a necessary step towards personal well-being. The story of his exit from MASH becomes a powerful reminder of the complexities behind the scenes of television and the human experiences that shape our favorite characters.